Hey everyone, Yvette St.Amant here. I'm so excited for you guys to join me on the my first episode, I suppose, of Mandala Diaries, where we're going to learn all about drawing mandalas. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to work on some line design. And of course, this is a fundamental component when you're drawing mandalas, is getting all the little design work into your mandalas. So what I want to show you today is just a variety of designs that you can use when you're doing your mandalas. And we're just going to do straight lines today, you guys. We're not going to be doing any kind of circles. And we might do a little practice one in the corner. So I want you to grab your journals, and if you've followed my tutorial and you made one of these wonderful little journals for our Mandala Diaries, then grab it out. I've just put an array of craft papers, some of my jelly prints, regular papers. I mean, we've got an assortment of everything in here, and I just turned to a page that had, a design on it. You don't have to. You can use a plain page if you want. This is kind of near the back of my book. And this is going to be our practice page. So I want you to grab a pen, grab your marker. I'm just using one of these Sharpie fine tip black retractable ones today. And all we're going to do is go through some designs. So these are all, I'm just trying to see if I can zoom in here, which I don't think I can. Oh, cannot zoom. Okay, I apologize. I was trying to zoom in a bit so you could see my paper better, but you might be okay. All right, so let's work on some of the designs that we can incorporate in our mandalas, and these are always things that you can incorporate along the edges of your circles and within all the shapes that you do in your circles. So we're just going to start off. I'm going to go just down the top of the page doing a line. We're just going to start with a line. And we're going to start with one of my favorite designs, and that's just the scallop edge. And don't worry if they're not all even. One thing I always stress when we're doing mandalas is that once you get all the detailed goodness within it, your mandala is so busy that you just don't see all the imperfections. So we just did a scallop edge, and the scallop edge is just like a half circle all along your line. Now, one way that you can embellish this half circle and make it more interesting, there's a couple things you can do, is you can double up the lines like this to make them larger. So go ahead and try that. And we're just having fun with line today. And then you can also put dots within each half circle. So we've taken a basic scallop and we've made it a little more interesting. Now you don't have to do this on all your scalloped edges, but it's just a way to make that scallop edge a little more interesting. Now, there's another way that you can pump up the scallop edge, and that's within these double lines, you can put some stripes. So go ahead and try that, and I'll show you in a minute here. How it just adds a little more detail. Okay, and the great thing about when you're doing mandalas is you can do designs on both sides of the lines. So if you've done a line, whether it's a circle or a petal shape, you can do scalloped edges like this on the inside of the line or the outside of the line. So let's go ahead and do a different design on the other side. And what we're going to do is we're just going to bring a line up through the middle of the scallop where they meet. And I'll zoom in a second so you can see. Just like so. Okay, and then we're just going to add like a little ball on the end. Like so. Now to amp up that ball, you can put an additional, like a little dot in between. These are just ways to build up your lines, like so. Okay, so let's do another line beside it. Say we're doing another row in our mandala, and this is our next line. One of my other favorite techniques that I like to do are swirls. So you would just go along the whole line and do a swirl. Just like so. Okay, and then a way to make this swirl a little more interesting is just between each swirl, add a circle. And you'll get to see how, and everybody does their designs differently. I tend to use similar designs over and over in different patterns. So it doesn't have to be complicated. Just rearranging how you use the shapes is going to give you a different look. And then one of the things that you can do on another line, on an inside or outside, is do, I might have to turn my book a bit, just the way that I draw, is a teardrop shape. This is also another one of my favorites. Now we can always make our current shapes into something else once we put it down. So maybe I want to add 3 little petals onto my existing teardrop. So you're going to go ahead and try that. And it just starts changing the pattern into something a little more exciting. And of course, I like to put dots and everything, so you can, break up your shapes by adding dots between the teardrops. And you can also add circles, triangles, anything you want in between the shapes that you put along the line. Here, I'm just adding triangles. Okay, so let's draw another line coming down. And this time what I want you to do is do another line beside it as if it were a double line. Because a lot of the times when I'm doing mandalas, I'll mention doing a double line. And whatever shape that you put down, you're just going to double it up. And why I like doing that is because you could do a variety of really neat patterns within it. You can do zigzags. So try that. Now, when you do your zigzags, you can amp that up a bit. You can put a dot in the triangles along one side, like so. And then you can color in the triangles opposite to it. Another thing that you can do, which I'm just going to show you on the other half of these instead of coloring them all the way, is you can do stripes. If you don't want the solid color, but you want to break up that shape, just add a different pattern, like so. And then just always keep in mind, whenever you have a line, a straight line, you can do a design on it. Now, you don't always have to do, you can do circles coming off like so. You can do, other triangles coming off this way. There are so many different things you can do. You can do lines with dots that are not attaching, similar to what we have up here. You can do your swirls. There really is so many ways you can get creative with this. Okay, another thing that I like to do, let's do another double line here. Is I call it wishy-washy, where you just do like these squigglies within the two lines. You can do squiggles. You can do diagonal lines. You can leave them as diagonals, like so, or you can turn them into like a plaid pattern. Like so. Now, let's talk about another thing. If we do a line here, we can take shapes such as your swirl and we can alternate the direction of them. So they actually end up touching each other. They almost make little hearts. And this is a really nice pattern to do too, and I'm going to show you in a minute. Just like that. Why I like this is because you end up with additional space to work with here. And what I typically like to do is put these teardrop shapes whenever I have like a little V. And we're going to go more into that in a minute. I'm going to show you how to deal with points. So then when you have a line like this, don't be afraid to go back on the other side of the line, whether it's the inside or outside of a shape, and just, add I did some scallops there. There's also a way you can double up by just doubling up a line and you're not actually attaching it, just like so. Okay, so you're just really building up all the lines that we're going to create in the mandalas. Okay, so let's work on something else, and these are points and circles. So, for instance, because we're going to be working in a circle with our mandalas, you're going to have your shapes are going to be in the formation of a circle, but you might have, for instance, I'm just going to do a half circle, this kind of shape within larger shapes like this. They're almost like larger scallops. And on those, you can go ahead and do smaller scallops. So it ends up almost being like a frill. And these shapes are going to double up as well. And you'll start working within these circles as well. But the reason why I want to show you this is, I'm going to have to do another sample here, is you're going to have points and dips to work with. So, as an example, I am going to do one of my petal shapes that I like to do right here. You might have a series of these together in a circle. Within that petal, there's, I'll turn my paper this way again, designs that you can do. You want to create designs within these petals. So this is a really nice way to just kind of break up the section by adding, you know, a scoop. And this is where you would just double up lines. But the other thing is, and you don't have to always go from left to right, you can have various shapes coming down the center of the petals, and you can have, you know, other shapes coming out. But one of the things that I really like doing in my mandalas is working with the tips as well. And this is where I'll go and add swirls. And remember, you're always building off your shapes. So within these, like you put a swirl on one of your edges, you can put another design right in the corner coming off the swirl. I'll probably have to turn this around for you after to see. And you can put another swirl on the other side. They don't always have to, maybe add some dots. They don't always have to be symmetrical. So when you're working with larger shapes, you don't always have to have the same thing on every side. You're just kind of working within the patterns. Okay, so let's do another shape. One of the shapes that I like to do within, like when you get two of these between, is the half moon. And on the half moon, I like to double these up. And this is where you would add whatever design, one of the designs that we learned over here. And there are many more. I mean, you can also do, I'm just going to poke one in here, circles within the squares. We did triangles. Okay, you can do straight lines. Anything that you can fit in here. If you want to just like kind of get all like hashtaggy and scribbly, you can do that. So there's so many variations. You can, you know, double up lines. You can color some in. So you just have to, you know, practice, use this journal as practice, go through and do a variety of designs to get familiar. But getting back to the half moon here, is one of the nice things to do with the half moon too is just literally pruning shapes off it so they're not even connected. And this is just the teardrop shape that I showed you over here. So this is working with your curves now. So these are just all some little design ideas that you can implement in all your curves that you're going to do. And then what you can do is, this is where I would add swirls in between these. And this is the movement that you're going to have when you're working with a circle. I'm just doing a half circle here for you. Okay, so we're building designs around the circle, and it's basically all just these different shapes. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the designs that we can use around our circle. So for an example, if I have a circle here, so we're just starting out, this is going to be without guides, and we start building it up. There's a couple things that I do. I like to build up my mandalas with the scallop. It's almost like you're making a little flower shape. And then I use the points between those to create additional shapes, such as the petals. Now, if you're trying this, please don't get frustrated because all your petals aren't the same shape or size. Mine aren't either. This is freehand. So we end up with a little flower. Okay, right now we're just working on designs. Now we've got to build up our mandala in a cylindrical, or, you know, a circle. And what I like to do is build up the mandala first and then go back with the designs. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. So you can do half moon shapes between the petals. And then what you start doing is you use these points again. And this time maybe they're a little shorter. And then you've got that centerpiece to work with again. Another thing that I like to do is just do these little leaf shapes. So right now we're talking about the intersecting points, the corners, and as you can see, my mandala is not perfect. It's wonky. I've got different size petals in there because we're freehanding it, and that's okay. This is just practice, and that's what this journal is about. So let's just start with something basic like this, and then we can try to build off it and get some more design within it. So one of the easiest ways to double up, or to, you know, start building your design, is double up those lines. So on these outer ones, I'm going to just double them up. And then within the double line, let's say we just do stripes. Now to start, just have all the stripes going in the same direction. Okay, don't try to, you know, curve. That kind of thing takes practice. And if you want a little trick, just start from point to point and just make sure that all your lines are, you know, parallel when you're putting them in. Okay, so you've gone ahead and you've put all of your little lines around the edge. Now what we're going to do is let's try and get something going in the center of this area. So a couple things we can do is we could double up again, but we've already done that. So let's try and do a big swirl coming out of each corner of that petal. So right where that half moon starts, just draw a big swirl, and you'll do that all the way around. Everyone's going to be a different size because your petals are different sizes. You see how this is starting to just get some interest in there? And then from the center tips, we can do teardrops and a circle in between. We could do that all the way around. Now, if you're doing this on a plain white paper, you're going to notice more of your imperfections. And that's why I suggest use a pattern paper, because all that busyness really tricks the eye. And you can use even book pages, like old book pages. One thing that I really like I like doing word searches. So I'll take my old word searches and I'll doodle little mandalas on word searches. So those are some ideas too if you don't have craft paper on hand. If you've got newsprint, that's a good idea too, to use some newsprint. You can use old wrapping paper. You can put wrapping paper in your journal or gift bags. Tissue paper is nice, but it might not be strong enough for what we're doing here, just with the practice. So, okay, so we've gone and we put a little bit of some design within. Now with these tiny little leaves, let's just make them look like leaves. Put some veining in there. If you can see that, we'll do it up close. Okay. And then remember when I was talking about how you can do the inside of the line and the outside of the line? This is where you can come in and you do, you know, designs on the inside of those half moons instead of the outside. So I'm going to do that for these. Just go around. Okay, and then with these little petals, I'm just going to have a line coming down. And we'll do a little, like, reminds me of a little Christmas ball on the end. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put polka dots between or in the middle of each of these little scallops. So now we're just creating more distractions within our mandalas. Next time, I hope I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit better so you guys can see. I apologize if it's hard to see, especially if you're on a phone. If you're on a bigger screen, you might not have a problem. Okay, and then in the center, you can always just do some little, like a flower shape. Other ways to do your center is to just swirl the center in. Another way, if you've got a small center, is you can actually just put, you know, stripes in or checkers. It doesn't have to be organic. And then just, you know, add some dots. You can never have enough dots in mandala design. All these little spaces that are just kind of hanging around, just add some dots. They're great fillers. Okay, so that's it for your first little freehand mandala, and this is our practice page. So what I would like you guys to do as a little assignment is just continue practicing on various designs that you can use along your lines, and use this journal if you want to go over here and do some more work there, or flip another page and just practice drawing lines and doing a variety of shapes. Maybe you can come up with, you know, different shapes, what you can do within those shapes, ways that you can come off those shapes and build the shapes up. Okay? And just practice and have fun with it. These are my classic petal shapes that I do. I like to do swirls off them and then add a little teardrop in between and then dots. And here I'm going to zoom in so I can show you how I'm skipping every other petal so that I can fit the design in. See how this point, I did my swirls off this point, I left this point, the swirls off this point, left that point. That way it gives me, because I wouldn't be able to fit a swirl in here, and then you fill these with circles, dots, teardrops, whatever shapes that you can think of. So I want to thank you so much for joining me on our first episode here of Mandala Diaries, and I hope you got some great information on how to work the lines. And I just want you to practice and practice and practice, and as we move forward into our Mandala Diaries, we're going to start building some beautiful mandalas, and I'm going to show you how you can fill them in, how you can use different colored pens, and we're just kind of sticking to the basics now because I want you guys to get the feel of it. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.